Morning, third year English honors students. We are talking after a long gap. I hope everybody is doing well. Today we have to discuss a little bit about The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Of course, you already know that we have discussed this text extensively in class, but we were unable to cover the short questions. While doing broad questions, of course, the short questions were dealt with, but just a reminder that on how to brush up your short questions. So let's do a little bit of a practice out here. It's not going to be a lecture, a proper lecture as such. It is just going to be a brush up of the short questions. So let's start with a little introduction. We already know that this is a very important text when it comes to black feminism. Because it talks about the defranchised, powerless African American women of the 1930s. The background is, of course, Georgia. And so when I say defranchised, powerless women, defranchised means they cannot vote, powerless, uneducated. I am definitely talking about power politics out here, a very important part, a very important focus of the texts that you have been doing throughout your third year, especially the sixth semester. So when we talk about power politics, definitely identity comes up, and identity wise, of course, we discussed in class there are layers of identity, and here we have gender and race colliding, or we can say colliding or correlated with each other. Gender wise, these women character, the main character Celie, of course, she's a woman, a female. And race, if you look at her race, she is an African American, precisely a black woman. So these two identities, race and gender, is interrelated to each other, and how this gender and race of her makes her a less powerful person, a less powerful entity in this entire power structure, the pyramid of power, the pyramid of hegemony. Now that is an introduction, of course. Then if we come to the summary of the novel, of course, we have this 14-year-old girl who writes to God. And please remember, since we are focusing on short questions, let me tell you something, that there are 90 letters. There are 90 letters in the entire book, and or the text has 90 letters. Most letters are written by Celie to God, of course, because she believes only God listens to her. And then there are other letters that are written to and fro by Nettie, her younger sister, to Celie, and Celie to Nettie. So precisely there are 90 letters, and it is an epistolary form of text, a book. Epistolary means the entire plot moves through letters. So whatever is happening in the story, we come to know about it through the letters that Celie writes to God, or through letters that Celie writes to Nettie, or Nettie writes to Celie. Okay, now that is one important thing. Please keep in mind there are 90 letters. It is an epistolary form of text, a form of narrative, we can say. And another important thing is it was published in the year 1982. Please remember that, 1982. And then there is the background. Where is the story situated? It is situated in Georgia. Please remember that, Georgia. That is another point to remember. Now when we look at short questions, I would request you to kindly go through the story precisely, because I cannot pinpoint everything and talk to you about it. You all are 6th semester students, please remember, and we are dealing with some of the most, I keep telling you in class also, these are very complex, very contemporary, you can call it, with everything that is happening, Black Lives Matter, the hashtag going on with whatever happened in the US. These are very contemporary, very serious, I won't say complicated, a very serious, contemporary, matured text that you are dealing with. So my dear students, when we are dealing with such mature text, you cannot expect me to teach you like 10th standard students and talk to you about every short question. So you are supposed to figure it out. Here, I already told you, this is not a very formal traditional lecture out here. It is almost like a uh, it is almost like a practice for attempting your short questions. So with the story evolving, you will also get your facts right, and you can write about it in your answers. Please remember that much. So of course we talked about epistolary form, and of course it is based in Georgia. There are 90 letters. It was first published in the year 1982. These are important points to remember, and please just find out what award has it, what award was it recipient to. Alice Walker won a lot of awards for this book, many literary awards. That might also be included in your short questions. So then let's come down to characters. Let's break it down to the characters, because a lot of short questions can come from the characters. So you have the main protagonist, Celie, a 14-year-old girl. Then you have her younger sister, Nettie. Then you have their father, stepfather, Alfonso. Of course, this man has sexually abused Celie, leading to her pregnancy. And from her first pregnancy, there is a child named Olivia. And then second pregnancy leads to the birth of another child, Adam. So Olivia and Adam are her children. They are taken away by Alfonso. They are taken away from her. So these characters are important. Then you have Celie being married off to Mr. His name is not mentioned at first. Mr. His actual name is Albert. This can also come for your short questions. So she is married off to Mr. Now Mr. already has children from his first marriage. His wife has died. So one important son is Harpo. Then Harpo is Mr.'s son. Harpo marries Sophia. Now Sophia is an important character in the novel, because Sophia teaches Celie to stand up for herself. Now, Sophia resists, the word is resistance. She resists the oppression that is happening against her. Sophia does not let the men in her life dominate her. So that is Sophia for you. Now, another important woman in the novel, of course, is Shug Avery. And Shug Avery is a jazz singer. She comes to sing in Harpo's new Juke restaurant, a musical shop that Harpo has opened. So Shug Avery is, of course, she develops a friendship with the main protagonist, Celie. All this has been discussed in class, if you remember. So how does Shug Avery come to live with them? We already know that she is a mistress of Mr. or Albert, and she comes to live in their house when she is sick, and Celie, of course, being the sort of a housemaid of Mr., starts to tend to her. Celie has always been fascinated by Shug Avery, because among these women of color, Shug Avery is the most empowered. She lives life with comfort. She admires beauty. She has dignity, basic human dignity. So when Celie used to see Shug Avery's photo in magazines, she used to be extremely fascinated by this woman. So their friendship, of course, turns into a relationship. They form a relationship. Celie is sort of in love with Shug Avery. If we look at the novel, then interesting point happens in the novel when Celie and Shug tries to find out the letters that Nettie had written to Celie. So from Nettie's letters, we come to know that now those letters had been hidden by Mr. for such a long time. So 30 years later, Celie comes to know about Nettie, and how Nettie had ran away to Africa, and had come to be in good terms with Corinne and Samuel, the two African American missionaries who had gone to Africa. And Corinne and Samuel had adopted Olivia and Adam. So the entire family is united later when Celie decides to go to Tennessee. Now, with the progression of the book, Celie starts being more empowered. With the struggles, oppression, exploitation, her journey is all about struggle when it comes to oppression, exploitation, be it sexual, physical, verbal. But all this has made her or transformed her into a very, very strong woman. And this woman decides to leave everything and move away to Tennessee. And there she reunites with her family, with her younger sister Nettie, and then inherits the stepfather's property. Adam marries an African girl belonging to the indigenous tribe. Her